What's up, airplane collectors? Welcome to a model fighter jet review. I'm your host, Ray. Today I'll be reviewing the Hobbymaster 1/72 scale FA-18E Super Hornet Aggressor aircraft, flying for VFC-12 of the United States Navy in 2023. Item number HA5135, released in November of 2023. In this video, I'll do an in-depth review of the model and its accessories, and at the end I will give my opinion on what I think of the model and whether or not I recommend it to other collectors. The box is a standard Hobbymaster FA-18E box, measuring 27 centimeters long, 27 centimeters tall, and 8.5 centimeters wide. I'll show you around the box now. So this is the front, bottom, right side, top, left side, and the back side. Back here is a bit of information about the FA-18. Take a moment to read this if you want to. The only thing that differentiates this box from any other Hobbymaster 1/72 scale FA-18E box is this sticker here on the front of the box that denotes the model that is inside of the box. There's one here on the front and one here on the left side. Included in the box is the model, fully painted, almost fully assembled, and almost ready to display. Also included are parts for extended and retracted landing gear, open and closed canopies, a part removal tool, a pilot figure, and a metal and plastic display stand. I also forgot to mention that there is a detachable fuel tank part included as well. Here's the model itself. Before we start today's review, I'll give you a quick 360 of it. The model is made primarily out of die-cast metal. All of its accessories are made out of plastic with the exception of the wheels on the landing gear, which are made out of rubber. The length of this model is 26 centimeters, the wingspan is 19.3 centimeters, and it is 7.3 centimeters tall, sitting on the ground with the gear extended. These dimensions are accurate to 1/72 scale. Let's start at the review with the fuselage and top side of the aircraft. So here we are at the nose. Overall, we're off to a really strong start. There's a lot of detail going on, all of which looks really good. There are only two complaints that I have so far already. The first is the seam line between the parts being joined here. It does get a little bit wide and more noticeable right here. Still within acceptable margins, but something I did notice. The other thing I'd like to point out, which is a consistent, not necessarily problem, but inaccuracy throughout the whole aircraft, is this shade of bluish gray here. It's very gray and it should be a bit more blue. When I compared the colors with the real aircraft, I noticed that this color wasn't exactly the color it's supposed to be. Same goes for the white. I think this white could be a little bit darker, but the main gripe I have is with this blue here, so that's it. Otherwise, it looks pretty good so far. So I'll move down the aircraft, take a moment to look at the details on the fuselage. They're pretty solid. There's the VFC-12 lettering there. Looks pretty nice. There's our antenna on the backside of the plane. Yeah, lots of detail, and overall no complaints other than the ones that I've mentioned so far. Now here is the left side vertical stabilizer, and you'll notice that there is a red star on the vertical stabilizer. Now the reason that's there is because this is an Aggressor aircraft, so it's pretending to be an aircraft from a threat nation to the United States. That's why it has that marking on there. That's just a fun fact I figured I'd share. But overall, the vertical stabilizer looks really nice. Once again, very nicely detailed. And here is the inside of the right vertical stabilizer. And for some reason, I'm not sure what this logo is, but it's there. It looks good. It's accurate to the real thing. That's all that really matters. I'll show you guys the backside of the fuselage now. This looks pretty good as well. No complaints, nothing I can really point out that's inaccurate or has issues. And there's the inside of the left vertical stabilizer. Looks pretty good. And there is the right vertical stabilizer. All the markings and the patterns look accurate so far as well. Let's have a look at the engines. The engines look pretty nice. The exhaust nozzles are painted two shades of metallic brownish gray, which looks really nice. And the insides of the exhaust nozzles are pretty nicely detailed as well. So those look pretty good. Now I'm going to pan the camera, or well, move the aircraft across the right side of the aircraft so you can get a good look over here too. Everything I've said about the left side is also applicable to the right side. Overall, we're doing pretty solid so far, minus the paint issue and the slight complaint I had about the seam line earlier. Here's an up-close view of the canopy. The canopy on this model is okay. It's made out of plastic, but the seam with the fuselage, it's not too great. I do notice where the canopy joins with the fuselage. It's a very clear joint there. Now it is removable. If you wiggle it out, it does come off, and inside you can see the cockpit, which is pretty nicely detailed. That's probably the best view I can give you of the cockpit, but it's very nicely detailed. There is printed there is printed instruments in there, which look really nice, and also a heads-up display part in there, which, let me point that out for you with my pointer. There you go. It's right there. It's a plastic piece. So overall, it's really nicely detailed. Here is a view from the left side. I think this is a bit of a better view. Now, also included was a part for an open canopy configuration. Now, the problem I have with this part is not anything regarding the accuracy of it, but rather the packaging and the design. You see, this support strut right here is made out of plastic, and it's very flimsy. It's very likely for this to break in transit, and it's even more likely that you break it when you're trying to open it. So be extremely careful with this part. Now, when I'm fitting it to the aircraft, it's an okay fit. The strut doesn't go into the designated hole, as you just saw there. It actually just snapped out. I think I just broke it, actually. Oh, no, I didn't break it. It's just angled like that. But it is supposed to fit into the aircraft like that. And here is what the open canopy configuration looks like. It's quite nice. Moving on to the wings. The wings in this model are also quite nice. They're very nicely detailed. There's lots of molded panel line detail, which is a little bit hard to see due to the nature of the paint job on this model, but it's still there nonetheless, very clearly defined. So this is the top of the left wing. As you can see, there's a bit of printed detail in the form of like no-step placards and all that fun stuff, which looks pretty good. Now on the left wing on the launch rail here, we have an inert AIM-9 Sidewinder missile here. We know it's inert because it is colored blue. Blue means that it is a training round or a training dummy, if you will, and it does not contain either a rocket motor nor does it contain a live warhead, but it does contain a seeker, which allows this aircraft to simulate the air-to-air capabilities of the AIM-9 Sidewinder. Here's a top view of the right wing. It's a little bit different than the left wing because of the camouflage pattern, but everything I said about the left wing is also true for the right wing. It looks really good overall. On the right launch rail, however, we do not have an inert AIM-9 Sidewinder. Instead, we have an ACMI pod, which I like to call ACMI. I'm not sure if that's actually something they would say, but it's the letters ACMI. And this is used to collect data about this aircraft's performance in the air. So this is pretty nice. It's a plastic part. However, the tip here is very, very fragile and is very easy to bend. So that is one con with handling this model. Breaking the tip on the ACMI pod is very easy to do. We're at the rear of the aircraft once again. Now we're looking at the horizontal stabilizers. These look pretty good as well. They have some panel line detailing, which looks pretty good, as well as printed detail. And the paint application for the camouflage looks pretty consistent here as well. Here is the underside of this section of the aircraft. And while we're back here, I'll go over the markings at the rear underside of the aircraft. There we go. So right there we have a black Navy title. This looks pretty good. And then here we have the aircraft type A-18E and the bureau number 165789. And now we have made our way to the bottom of the aircraft. I'm going to pan the camera across the bottom side of the right side of the aircraft. Overall, down here, details are pretty consistent as well. Definitely not lacking here like it would on some other models, which is very nice to see. Here's the bottom side of the left side. Also looks pretty solid as well. No complaints down here. Here's the underside of the left wing. With this specific model, Hobbymaster has blocked off the 3 wing hardpoints with pieces of plastic, and you can pretty clearly see them here. So unfortunately, if you wanted to add ordnance onto this thing, or at least on the underwing pylons, you can't on this model. Here's the underside of the right wing. The story is pretty much the same. Aside from the blocked hardpoints, everything down here looks pretty good as well. So I'm going to bring your attention to the bottom center of the aircraft. Right here you can see the hardpoint where the centerline fuel tank goes, but that's not why I'm here. The reason I'm here is to discuss a asymmetry which I found. So for those of you who prefer alignment and symmetry on both sides, this is definitely going to take you off, as it kind of does with me. So the intake on the left side of the aircraft, it's painted all white on the outside, like the real thing should. Now what Hobbymaster does is they take the paint that goes on the outside of the intake and they put it on the inside as well, which, okay, there's no issue with that. And you can actually see the wall of the intake right there. Now with the right side, it's a gray color, which is not the same color as the left side, hence why I say asymmetry. It's accurate, but unfortunately Hobbymaster doesn't really paint all the way to the inside, well, all of the details on the insides of the engine intakes. Now it's time for my signature staring contest, the view of the front of the aircraft. So far everything here looks pretty good. The gear balance looks mostly symmetrical, maybe off to the side just a little bit, but not by much. The wings are angled downward, which is accurate to the A-18E. Looks pretty good. Vertical stabilizers seem symmetrical as well. Everything here looks pretty good, no complaints. Now I'm going to move on to the accessories that are included with this model, starting with the landing gear. So the landing gear are fitted to the aircraft through a very tight friction-based attachment. Actually, all attachments to this aircraft are friction-based. So what I mean by that is that what happens, okay, there we go. If you take off the landing gear, you can see that there is a section that goes into the wheel bay here. So this is the nose wheel. It's really nicely detailed. It's painted a cream yellow color, which is accurate, and it looks pretty good. The painting on here looks pretty good and consistent as well. As mentioned earlier, the wheels are made out of rubber and they do not roll. So that's pretty nice. Now, the main gear is a bit of a different story with regards to removing it from the model. There we go. Now, here you can see that it's pretty scratched up on the part that goes into the aircraft itself. The reason for that is because I sanded this stub here, or whatever this is, the part here, I sanded it a little bit to reduce the friction between this part and the model itself. Because initially the friction is very high, and I found it very difficult to remove the landing gear when I wanted to put in the parts for the retracted landing gear configuration. So just be aware, the fit between the main gear parts and the model itself is very tight, and you might want to file it down first before fitting it into your model. Don't file it too much either, because otherwise you won't be able to undo that and you'll have a very bad day. Now with regards to the gear itself, it is nicely detailed. I do see some paint chipping here. So something happened there on the wheel, or the rim rather. The wheels themselves, once again, made out of rubber. The gear parts are very nicely detailed, very accurate as well, and they look pretty solid, just like the nose gear. So the extended landing gear parts look pretty nice. Now for the retracted landing gear parts, they are also fit in through a friction-based attachment, and here is the nose gear part. We're going to throw it in right there. The nose gear part is a little bit stubborn. It is rather hard to fit into the model, but once it's fit in there, assuming I don't launch the model, geez, there we go. Once it's fit in there, the fit really isn't great. You can see that it kind of does stick out a little bit. Now, if I force it a bit more, it kind of does eventually conform to the aircraft, but the fit isn't perfect. Here you can see what I mean. Now the main gear part, this part actually has appropriate friction applied to it, so it's not terrible to remove. So here is the main gear retracted part, and it even includes paint that exactly aligns with the camouflage on the underside of the aircraft. So that's very nice, and like I said, the fit is really snug. Now back here is the display stand hole, and there's also a part included to cover this up, and it fits in just like the retracted landing gear parts. So I'll just put it in right there. And the fit, it is a little bit, it's definitely loose actually. And if I were to hold this right side up, I guarantee it's going to fall out if I flick it. Oh no. So the part fit is loose. I do have to push it in there a bit, but it does evidently stay. Now, getting these parts out in theory would be very difficult, but that's why the part removal tool is included. And I'll demonstrate its use right now. So it's got a little hook that goes into a slot in the retracted gear parts. And you just pull really hard and it comes right on out. Well, both parts evidently came out, so yeah. Now here's the one for the nose gear. This shouldn't be too hard. Watch me miss it. Oh, there we go. The only form of detachable ordnance included with this model is this centerline fuel tank, and it's actually pretty nicely detailed. It does have some printing here, which I can't really read, but it looks pretty cool. It actually looks like just a bunch of lines. But overall, it looks pretty decent. The paint here on the nose could be a little bit better. I do see that it is kind of faded in some places, but nonetheless, it's decent, and it fits onto the center hardpoint like this. Remember, the part that is angled like this, and the part that has this, well, the part that has this part cut out of the mounting part here, so many uses of the word part, oh my god. This section here goes towards the rear of the aircraft, if that makes sense. I'll just demonstrate what the fit looks like. Or you could just use logic and see that this sharp nose part goes towards the front of the aircraft. I could have said that earlier, geez. But that's what the centerline fuel tank looks like. Here is the included pilot figure. It looks pretty decent, and it's made out of a very flexible material, which makes putting it into the cockpit rather easy. It just slides in right there. You just put the feet between the control stick. Give him a few pushes until the helmet lines up with the headrest, and it fits in like that. With the closed canopy configuration, there is no problem with this pilot figure fitting into the model. Here is the model sitting on its included metal and plastic display stand. The plastic parts are the base itself and the part that connects to the aircraft. The metal part is the stand that holds up the part that connects to the aircraft. And the stand is pretty good. The fit is rather loose though. Loose as in the model will wobble when you move it enough, like this. You can see it moves a little bit. But the stand is sturdy enough to the point where the model is at virtually no risk of falling off and causing damage to your model. So you can definitely trust the included display stand. That concludes my review. Now time for my opinion and recommendation. So I think this is a pretty decent model. It's nicely detailed and it's got a bit of customization to it. Not as much as other FA-18s though. I own 2 other FA-18s from Hobbymaster, and they include way more customization options in the form of detachable ordnance that could go under the wings. Now, do I think that this one could have also included detachable ordnance for the wings? Absolutely, because these Aggressor aircraft are often fitted with special instrumentations or even inert missiles and bombs on the undersides or on the underwing pylons that go on the wings. So I do think that this thing could have included more ordnance. But still, the included customization is quite nice. And with regards to the model itself, the blue paint, it's not 100% accurate, but it's pretty decent. And overall, the quality is pretty good. I didn't see too much in like quality failures, so I think it's a good model. So therefore, I do recommend this model to those who want it. If you're not okay with something on this, then I guess you can wait for another one or build one yourself. But still, I'd say give this one a shot because it is still a pretty decent model with its minor faults. And that's all for today, folks. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions or anything you'd like to ask, feel free to drop that in the comment section below. I'll be happy to answer your questions. Or if you have something that you want to point out that I missed, feel free to do that. But that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for more model airplane content. I have more reviews coming out, so keep a lookout for those. Like, comment, and subscribe. Happy building, happy collecting. Take care of yourselves. I'll see you next time.